to talk about how to hack your habits for brain health with Kelsey Morrow. Many of you may recognize Kelsey from the MS Center's educational programs over the last 9 years, but you might not know that she's also a national board-certified health and wellness coach, helping people make the healthy changes they want to see in their lives. Kelsey, thank you so much for letting me turn the tables and ask you the questions today.
Thanks, Kerri. I'm excited to be here to share some tips and strategies for people. One of the things that I've learned over the years of listening to our neurologists is just how important living a lifestyle that supports brain health is for everybody. That includes things like balanced nutrition, adequate physical activity, decent sleep, managing stress levels, social connection. And we know that making changes in any of these areas is difficult for anyone. But when you add in the complications that come with MS, like fatigue, pain, just managing the day-to-day issues that come with a chronic illness, it can get really overwhelming. So I'm excited to share some strategies that are hopefully going to be manageable and help folks, really make the lifelong changes that they're looking to make. Great.
Let's start the timer and get to it. Kelsey, what's the best way to form a habit?
Whoa. That answer is going to look different for everybody. The truth is that there's nearly an unlimited number of ways to approach making new habits, and you really have to experiment and see what's going to work for you. You shouldn't feel pressured to make something work just because it works for other people. So I'm going to share some of my favorite strategies today, but I'm also at the end going to share a couple of books that have a lot more strategies. So if these don't work, no worries. There's lots out there. My key word is approach things with curiosity. Get curious about what works for you. Experiment with stuff. If it works, great, keep doing it. And if it doesn't work, let it go. Try something different. If there's a habit that you've been trying to make work and it just can't seem to stick, the problem is probably with the strategy that you're trying. It's not with you. So just keep giving it a try in a different way until you find what works.
All right, so where do we start thinking about all of this?
Yeah, I would suggest starting with one area of focus and with one small change that seems possible. We know that when people try to change too many different things in their life, or they set their sights on something that feels impossible, then it actually is impossible. So if eventually you'd like to eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, but you don't even know how many servings of fruits and vegetables you eat right now, maybe start with just tracking how many fruits and vegetables you eat right now without even trying to make a change. One of my favorite habits authors is Gretchen Rubin, and she writes in her book Better Than Before this phrase, we manage what we monitor. And it's just becoming aware of what you're already doing is so important. And sometimes just being aware of what you're doing inspires a change. And so that can be really the easiest way to make a change. But even if that doesn't inspire a change, just having a baseline, knowing where you're at is a good first step.
Nice. Once I have an idea of my baseline, what's the next step?
Yeah, the next step is the tiniest action that you can think of that moves you towards improvement. So let's say you realize you're only eating 3 vegetables a week. Maybe the next action step is to eat 1 extra serving of vegetables a week for a month. So now you're trying to get 4 servings of vegetables in. But maybe you are more interested or excited about the idea of eating new things. So maybe it's once a week you're going to try a new vegetable for a month. The key here is that it should be something that interests you, excites you. It shouldn't be something that sounds miserable. You're probably not going to do something that sounds miserable. So start small. And it should be really, really small, like something that you are almost guaranteed to have success with. Maybe if you want to take up meditating, rather than jumping into 20 minutes a day, you start with just 1 minute a day and you work your way up. And then you also have to figure out, how am I going to remember this habit? So many habits fail to stick just because we forget about them. So maybe, you schedule it in your calendar. Maybe you set an alarm on your phone, or you put a visual reminder around the house. There's lots of different strategies to explore there as well. And I know what you're thinking, that just 1 minute a day or just one vegetable a week, what kind of difference can that possibly make? It seems like a really slow way to start a habit. But the changes that we're trying to talk about today are lifelong. We want these to be things that grow over time. And so the time is going to pass anyway. And this way you'll at least be a little bit better off and on your way to quite a bit better off.
So what if I've already got some bad habits that I'd like to break?
Yeah, so if the best way to make a new habit is to make it easy, the best way to break a bad habit is to make it hard. So you would be amazed at how little the barrier has to be to make something inconvenient enough that we're not going to do it. So let's say you have a bad habit of eating an ice cream sandwich after every dinner and you want to cut back on that. The easiest thing to do would be to get rid of the ice cream sandwiches altogether, but maybe, you've got kids, your family likes them. So one suggestion might be tying a ribbon around the box of the ice cream sandwiches so that if you mindlessly reach into the freezer, you've got to think about it when you untie that ribbon to get to an ice cream sandwich. It doesn't actually stop you from eating an ice cream sandwich, it just gives you a minute to pause and think about it and decide that you really do or don't want that ice cream sandwich. So it's often easier to change our surroundings than it is to change ourselves. So look around and think, what are some ways that I can modify my environment to support the healthy choice that I'm trying to make? Maybe if you're trying to, get in more physical activity in the mornings, you put your gym clothes in a really convenient place, or you sleep in them so that you're already wearing them in the morning. Hide the junk food so you've got to go looking for it. Put the healthy snacks in the front of the fridge so you see them first. Really look around and say, what are some ways that I can make this much easier or much harder on myself?
So what role does language play in our habits?
Yeah, how we talk about things both out loud to other people as well as in our heads to ourselves is so important as we're trying to form new habits. One of the hackiest hacks that I can think of for forming new habits is to tie the action that you want to do to the type of person that you are or the type of person that you want to be. So really working it into your identity is what you're strategizing on. So for instance, another great habits author, James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, he gives the example of a person being offered a cigarette. Who is a person who no longer wants to smoke. So there's two different ways that this person could respond. They could say, no thanks, I'm trying to quit. And with that statement, their identity is still as a smoker who is trying to quit. And so they're trying to change something. But if they said something like, no thanks, I'm not a smoker, now they're identifying as not a smoker. And so that subtle difference in language is small, but it really matters a lot for internally how you're going to respond to something and how much easier it is to say yes or no depending on what you're trying to do. This idea of an identity can also be a hang-up for when you're trying to change bad habits. So if you are maybe trying to decrease your drinking, but you really feel like drinking is a part of what makes you the fun one, it's going to take some work to identify other aspects of your personality that make you fun so that you can kind of get away from this idea that drinking is what makes you the fun one.
What are some other things to consider as we do change our habits?
Yeah, so it's helpful to consider what has worked for you in the past, and not just what strategies have worked in the past, but what about those strategies have worked in the past. So let's say maybe at one point in your life you were keeping up a regular gym habit. You were going to a class at the gym that you really enjoyed. In order to identify the parts that worked from there, you're going to have to ask yourself some questions. So was it that the gym had a set schedule? You knew that class was every Monday at 5 p.m. And if you missed Monday at 5 p.m., you missed the class. Was it that you had friends in the class? And so having some accountability, someone who would ask where you were if you weren't there, was helpful. Or maybe it was just being social in general. You liked being around other people while you worked out. Maybe it was having the teacher design the class. All you had to do was show up and participate. And every time you knew that it was going to be a little bit different, so you really like that novelty there. So kind of drilling down into what it is about that past experience that worked for you is now something that you can apply in other areas. You can use it to help form better eating habits or better sleep habits.
You've mentioned that there are lots of different ways to think about changing habits. What are some questions that might help inspire people to get creative with their approaches?
Yeah, different things work for different people, and so I think it's important to ask yourself some questions that can help you know yourself better. And again, just because something worked for somebody else doesn't mean it has to work for you. So some of those questions could be, are you an abstainer or a moderator? And so an abstainer is somebody who it's easier to say no entirely to something, and a moderator is somebody who likes something in little bits. So for instance, with chocolate, if you're an abstainer, it's going to be easier for you to say no chocolate ever. That's an easy answer, takes away some of that decision fatigue. But for some people, they might rebel against that, and if they put chocolate off limits entirely, then they're gonna one day just cave and have, 2 or 3 candy bars. So that person might be a moderator. Maybe they like a little square of good chocolate every day, and that keeps them from going overboard with it once in a while. So really kind of thinking, and you can be an abstainer or a moderator in different ways for different things. Maybe with chocolate you're an abstainer, but with drinking you're a moderator. So it's not an all or nothing thing. Another question might be, do you do better when you do things every day? So you have a consistency in that way, or do you like little breaks? So maybe physical activity, you prefer to take a walk at the same time every day, and that helps build it into your schedule. Or maybe you prefer to do something Monday, Wednesday, Friday with a little break on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Rewards are a hot topic. Do rewards motivate you? Are you excited to get to that reward? Or do you kind of lose steam once you've earned the reward, and so it's not a good strategy for making a long-term habit? Or once you've identified the reward, do you totally skip the habit entirely and just jump right to the reward? So kind of some of these questions require being a little harshly honest with yourself. Do you prefer structure and rules, or do you need more flexibility when you're designing habits? Are you someone who likes novelty or predictability? Are you a night person or a morning person? And kind of how you answer all of these questions should really factor into how you design the habits that you're trying to form. If you're a night person and you want to start a gym habit, it might not make sense for you to say, I'm going to wake up half an hour earlier every day and go to the gym, because you're not a morning person. That's not going to work out for you. So you really want to consider your own personal preferences when you're thinking about habits.
Excellent. So what is your final tip for solidifying habits?
My final tip is one of my favorites. It's celebrate everything. Take every minute, every time you make that healthy choice, every time you do the thing you meant to do, celebrate it. Whether that's like a little fist bump, or like, maybe it's a mental pat on the back saying like, you did a great job in your head, maybe out loud. Call a friend, let them know you've done a good thing. Some people like to mark it on their calendars. That way you kind of visually see a streak coming. But really just, you want to reinforce in your brain that every time you make that choice is good. And give yourself that positive reinforcement.
Fantastic. So now, if someone wants to go deeper into how to hack their habits, what are some additional resources that you'd suggest?
I have several favorite authors. So the 3 books that I would recommend, there's tons of books out there, so if these ones don't suit you, there's lots of other ones, but I mentioned Gretchen Rubin. She's a fantastic habits author. Her book, Better Than Before, is all about habits. James Clear, Atomic Habits, is really fantastic. If you are interested in more of the background of habits, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg is really great. And then if you're interested, you're like, okay, now I know how to form these habits, but I don't know what to work on. The spring 2025 issue of Informs is called Caring for Your Brain, and it lists a lot of really great things that you can do brain health-wise to live a healthy lifestyle.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelsey, for sharing your insights, expertise, and wisdom with us. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.